Okay, I think we're getting started. Are you ready? Are you ready out there? Let's hear it. This is the last and most important session here at NATPE of the day. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Drew Baldwin, and I'm the CEO of TubeFilter. I also executive produce the Streaming Awards. We work in online video, but we also produce Social Media Week Los Angeles. And this is now my fourth time coming to NATPE, and I enjoy it so much. And I'm really grateful to the organizers for bringing this to Miami in the beautiful weather. And thank you, Rod and Jordan and everyone over at NATPE for making this possible. So the topic of discussion today is called leveraging major brands to build industry empires. And specifically, we're going to be talking about celebrity brands and how celebrities have really now become almost media platforms in themselves. And I'm joined by a great group of gentlemen who are complete experts in the space. So listen up and take notes because we're going to try to get through quite a bit in these 45 minutes. Immediately to my right, your left, is RJ Williams. He's the CEO of Young Hollywood. And we're also joined by Jamie Elden, the CRO and head of entertainment at Lynn Digital. And then Chad Bennett, the CEO and founder of Populous Brands. And we're going to dive in a little bit about building the cult of the celebrity. And I'll talk a little bit about what I want to discuss here. And we'll introduce the panel and we'll get right into it. So as you know, with the rapid advancement of social media, online video, and mobile technology, audiences have had more and increasing entertainment choices than ever before. And this new ecosystem has forced creatives to evolve or get left behind. So in an effort to capture and hold the attention of consumers, programmers have begun to rely more on these cultural icons. And you know who I'm talking about. And I'm not just talking about reality stars and movie stars, but these new breeds of cultural icons that have emerged. And it has launched the cult of celebrity to unprecedented heights. And of course, new opportunities that come along with it. So we're going to take an insider look on how celebrities are strategically leveraging their personal brand across distribution channels to build out entertainment empires, and how these brands, maybe not even attached to celebrities, have become celebrities in themselves, and how we're leveraging them in a multi-platform, multi-opportunity existence. So RJ, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, and we'll go down the line, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure. RJ Williams, founder, CEO of Young Hollywood. We're one of the largest producers of celebrity content, primarily premium content. So we don't do any of the paparazzi stuff or any of the gossip stuff. And it really is exclusive premium content because we're not doing red carpets and press junkets and the typical content that you see out there. It really is one-of-a-kind access that, in most cases, we're the only camera that's there, which makes it, exclusive content. Started in 2007, distribute to a host of major digital platforms from Yahoo, Hulu, AOL. We're one of the 100 premium channels when YouTube launched their channel initiative. Of course, younghollywood.com. We've got all of our social platforms. So up until now, it's been 3 to 5 minute snackable content. And now we're expanding into long-form content where we're doing traditional half-hour and 1 hour shows. 3 that are in production right now that we're just finishing up. And then we have a whole slate of programming that we'll do over 500 hours of content, of long-form content this year. We also do a lot of work with brands, everybody from Subway to Coca-Cola to H&M, Unilever, Electronic Arts. So that's one area where it's creating custom content for brands. And then our library now is several thousand hours. So we also have a big licensing business where we repackage and repurpose our existing library, and it airs all over the place, both domestically and internationally. This is my second year at NATPE. And it's great how it's traditionally a television linear conversation that goes on here, and now digital's really gotten in the mix because you see the two platforms coming together. So it's exciting how content is just now content. It doesn't really matter what platform you're on. It's all one and of the same.
Well, and RJ, just not to embarrass you, but you've had some pretty big news today. A first look deal with Fremantle, so congratulations on that. That just came out today.
Yeah. We're very excited. So now it's Young Hollywood going global. Up until now, it's all been domestic. So now we brought them on as our international partner. Rather than try and build it out ourselves, we surveyed the marketplace and saw, they were the best in the business for that, and said, you've got people on the ground, you're in all the countries we want to be in, let's do this partnership and take our content globally.
Yeah, I think that diversification is really going to come into play in the conversation today. Jamie, why don't you talk a little bit about what you do and your background.
Okay, great. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Lynn Digital, which is the division of Lynn Media. We're a multimedia company, 52 years old this year. We own and operate 43 television stations in 30 markets, so ABC, CBS, et cetera, in key markets. Our digital business is basically what I merged into to build over the last 2 and a bit years. And it's grown significantly. We've gone from having a very small digital business to now being probably one of the top 10 largest digital businesses in the US. Our video platform, which distributes content across all devices, is now ranked by Comscore and Nielsen in top 15. And today, you may have read the press, but we actually acquired Federated Media.
Yeah, it's a big acquisition.
As of this morning. So we're very happy. We're very happy about that. And that goes along with a couple of other acquisitions we made in 2013. We bought a company out in Hermosa Beach, a social media company called Hyphen, Hyfn, and that gave us a footprint into social media. They're one of 3 companies globally to have all 4 Facebook development badges. So that really leverages our way to developing content, moving content, and taking brands on that journey into social in a very safe way. So for us as a company, you know, it's big television company, digital business with digital assets, big distribution platform. We're reaching around 1 in 5, 1 in 6 US households every day. And for us, content is key. Celebrity is driving that right now. And brands are a major part of our business. That's how we make our money. So for us, it's an exciting time right now.
Chad?
Yeah, so I started at Populous Brands 2 years ago because I basically couldn't find a job doing what I was doing in my old job. And I was at Reveille and Shine America for 8 years. And the word major brands actually is a multi-meaning to me because at Reveille, I started a new department there called the Brand Development Department. And basically it was how do we integrate existing brands, so Subway, General Mills, Clorox, into our existing shows. But then also how do we build our own brands out of our media properties and in essence turn our TV shows into commercials. So The Biggest Loser was one of the shows that I worked on from day one and was with that show for 13 seasons. But even before that, Blowout with Jonathan Anton that ran for 3 seasons and leveraging him getting on QVC and into Sephora. And it's the notion of you have the audience's undivided attention and how do you figure out what that emotional relationship is and then tie in existing companies, manufacturers, retailers to capitalize against that emotional relationship to bring that show to life for people to live with every day. So now I'm working with manufacturers and brands and content creators and talent to do just that and really synchronize their production timelines for me coming from production and then really filling in the white space of where I think a lot of networks and agencies stop because they only really do one thing, where it's the notion of how does the licensing, sponsorship, brands, content development all come together in one force that really maximizes that connection that the audience has in that moment. Because I think what we all see is the rapid change, and if you don't capture it while you have it, then it goes away. So it's about building as much business as you can, knowing that content is ever changing, and trying to build that runway ahead of time as much as possible.
Yeah, I think, with this session in particular, we could have sit up here and talk about, you have to be on every platform. But I think really what we want to delve into in this conversation so that we get something useful coming out of this for everyone here in the audience is really the challenges that are faced when you're starting to build an empire around a major brand and thinking strategically and understanding what the roadblocks are in these experiences. So I think first, what I'd like to talk about is some major brands and celebrities that you think come to mind when you think about this sort of multi-platform and diversified strategy towards monetization, right? Like RJ, who do you think is doing it right or at least is in the spotlight now?
Someone that has just done a different approach is, Kim Kardashian, just because now she's a household name and everyone knows who she is. But it isn't for anything in particular. It's not like she was an actress or she was a singer, but she's created this aura and this brand, and she's doing endorsement deal after endorsement deal because she's made herself this brand, and that's literally what she is. It's almost not like she's a particular piece of talent. She is a brand that has all these tentacles now. which she's in everything from, from retail to endorsements to, every kind of product you can think. So, that's one end of the spectrum. And then, you have other ends of the spectrum of, somebody like Pitbull, who we've talked about, who, has a very specific audience. In the Latin market, he's really figured out how do we do something for them. And I think another great example is Diddy with everything that he's done, because he's taken it one step further, that he's not doing these endorsements where he's actually, an equity owner. You look at Ciroc, not many people knew what that was years ago, and now it's almost a household name, but it really became that because Diddy's association. And now he's teamed up with Mark Wahlberg, and he's doing it with a water, something called, Aqua Hydrate. So it's, can he transfer what he did with that? Now he just purchased a new tequila, De Leon Tequila. So now he's realizing that his association with these brands, suddenly makes it a household name that everybody can identify with.
But how in front of the brand is he? Like, there's Ciroc, which you may or may not know is part of Diddy, depending on how you're being marketed to. And then there's just like the Kardashian, where like that is the brand itself. I mean, I think, where do you see more of?
Diddy's done a different way because he really is part of that brand. If he's on a talk show, if he's on Jimmy Kimmel, like, he's talking about Ciroc. He might be wearing a Ciroc t-shirt, a Ciroc hat. Every party Diddy does, when he does his New Year's Eve party, it's only serving Ciroc product. So he's very good about being a true brand ambassador, that it's not just an endorsement. It's whenever you see him, it's top of mind, and it's always Ciroc this, Ciroc that.
Well, I think, the music industry has really pioneered this idea of breaking other artists and building out this sort of, pyramid scheme, I don't think is the right word, but there's definitely this type of breaking new artists and building out media empires.
And just on the music front, even, Jessica Simpson, she started out as a teen music star, but now has $1 billion consumer business and sells more shoes than most shoe brands. And I think for her, where she went right and where a lot of celebrities, movie stars, or singers go wrong is reality TV allows you to actually get to know the person, as opposed to P. Diddy. You don't always see who he is. You see the persona of him on stage. And with Jessica, she parlayed a music career basically into, she doesn't even really sing anymore. And it's all about what she's doing now as a brand, and then tapping into even what she does in everyday life, the notion that she gained weight from normal pregnancy, and then has a big deal with Weight Watchers. And then she leverages all of that to then drive her basically consumer product sales. So I think that's a great example of a transition from a music artist into a consumer brand that really now isn't a music artist anymore.
Almost the same with Diddy, because when's the last song anyone's heard by Diddy?
It's true.
Everyone knows who he is, but now it's, Diddy the brand because of the party thrower or, the TV network or whatnot, but it's not Diddy the music.
Why do you suppose this is happening now and it hasn't happened before? In terms of, why not just be a TV star or a music star? Like,
I think it all comes down to career length and career path. I think when you look at the music industry now, somebody can, you can come out, you can have a number one single, a number one album, you can do a worldwide tour, and in 18 months from now, suddenly it can be gone. It can be a bad tweet they make. It could be anything. If you look at what's going on with a very famous young boy right now. Okay, it's like how where's that going to go from here? So it's short-lived. So they're pressured. They start to move into other media and they build associations with brands because they're not sure how many more records they're going to sell, how long that's going to go. Are they still going to be selling tickets in 5 years' time? And the money that they can make outside of the music industry, if you take Dr. Dre, for example, Dr. Dre's been in the music industry for 25 years, maybe longer, okay? And if you look at the deals he's made with the Beats and things like that, and how he's built other brands in terms of, record labels and monetize that, the money he's made outside of music is 100 times more than what he's made in music. But it's credible. I like that type of brand association, like what Diddy did with Ciroc. We would value that product as being good vodka because Diddy, he likes to party, he's a connoisseur, and he's not going to push anything that he actually wouldn't want to drink himself. And I think the same way with Dr. Dre, what he did with beats. That guy knows music. He knows what a beat is. So people trust. If he's putting his brand behind a pair of headphones, it's good. And that's why it became $1 billion business.
And you're seeing now where talent's almost becoming consultants for brands. There's a recent deal Aquafina is launching a new product, Flavor Splash. It's like their version of vitamin water. And they associated Austin Mahone. Now, he's not a household name, but Austin speaks to that audience. If you're a 15-year-old girl, you know who Austin Mahone is. He's got, he's the new Justin Bieber. He's got that audience. And they figured rather than just do an endorsement deal with him, let's make him, I think he's like chief content officer or something. He's got some title within the company, but he's in all the strategy meetings. And they'll have 20 employees at the company talking to him saying, okay, how do we reach the millennial? How do we reach that generation? Austin, tell us, is this cool or is it not? So now you have this, kid that's this curator of what his audience wants. And I think nowadays you just have to because you need authenticity. And for a brand to do it, what better way to do it than someone that their audience identifies with?
Is he an equity owner, or is this like a more traditional endorsement deal that just requires more input than
I don't
face
know
on the box
the specific terms of that deal. I think it's not an equity ownership. I think it's a hybrid of the two. It's not like a Beats by Dre where it's an equity, but it's also not lending your name for an endorsement. It's you're affiliated with it in a broader way. And I imagine in a very meaningful way, because the record label's also very behind it, Universal Republic. I mean, it's a very interesting deal that they've done that I think is a new model that hasn't really done before, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
It's building authenticity into that deal. If you can find a scrap of it to work with, like being, the chief content officer, then he's vested. His fans, his market will believe he's vested, so they're going to believe in it more. The same way with Dre, there's authenticity behind that partnership.
That's true. I mean,
which
sometimes
makes sense.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like, everyone was shocked, or at least the music industry was shocked with 50 Cent, when he became an equity partner in vitamin water, which then, it's basically sold to Coca-Cola for, I think, his stake was valued at $400 million. I mean, that's huge. Amount of money. But then also we see, it not necessarily working out, like what Justin Timberlake was associated with, like a home furnishing through, I think, Home Mint, part of the Beach Mint family.
I think from my end on the production side of things, in terms of who's telling these stories, what I've seen a lot of, which I've actually been really surprised about after leaving Shine, is a lot of producers really don't have control of their brands. And in essence, their budgets are being squeezed down, their margins are being squeezed down. So to me, part of the urgency is bringing revenue and empowering the people that are telling these incredible stories, which is where all of the magic really lives and where the brands want to be associated with, and the retailers and the manufacturers. But a lot of times the actual content creator who is there to build this megaphone is being cut out and losing a lot of control in a system that is very layered of bureaucracy, that those people who are there meant to sell this and exploit this never get down to what's happening within the minutia of that story.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we've been talking about major celebrities who are huge stars in their own right launching brands. And that's sort of a natural extension of the personal brand of a celebrity. But we're also seeing stars being manufactured within the television system, particularly in reality, that still employ the same type of diversification strategy. And I think you can talk a little bit about The Biggest Loser and how strategically you were able to leverage people who were unknown into sort of brand ambassadors as part of a holistic picture. And I think that is really interesting because, yes, of course, if you're P. Diddy, you're going to be able to sell something, I think, right? I mean,
well, I think it's the notion that you can create your own celebrity for the right topic, the right content, the right platform. And with Biggest Loser specifically, and really most of the reality shows at Reveille, the people before the shows launched weren't known. So Bob and Jillian were not known in the fitness space at all. Jonathan Anton really wasn't known, domestically in the hair space, or whoever it might have been with one of our shows. So I think that over time, being a partner with the network and a partner with the talent really allows you to maximize where everyone's in it together. But then again, even with Biggest Loser, Jillian, she was able to build her own brand away from the show, and everyone really monetized. So I think there's even ways to create dual brands that are being moved together that ultimately drive more revenue. But I think it's really getting to the table all of the people that are in licensing and sponsorship and ad sales and talent and creative to say what is the brand, and then really the power of reverse engineering what that looks like at retail and creating your TV show to be that commercial driver, which is in essence what we were doing at Reveille. And there were lots of times we wouldn't do deals with networks because we didn't get the rights, or we weren't able to put this through the machine that we had built to really maximize that connection, which in turn creates a full circle of it builds ratings as well. So all of a sudden, all these people who are buying your products become your grassroots marketers. They're more financially invested as well as emotionally connected. And it just keeps, and that's why ultimately Biggest Loser grew so quickly, is because we were a partner with the network and with key talent, and we're able to connect those with the brands that wanted to be associated with the show.
So like what was the strategy around The Biggest Loser besides just being a show on TV? Like what else
so it was
brought into that?
and a lot of times what I face is a lot of corporations, which totally makes sense, are around quarterly earnings. So their focus is how do we make the most money this quarter? And a lot of times with, say, MasterChef, when I first started with MasterChef, I was pitching manufacturers before we even pitched the show to the network, because to get ahead of a timeline where it takes a year to get a product on the shelf, that never marries up to when you're shooting and then when you're airing. And it was always the notion of, like, if we were producing a book for Biggest Loser, we integrated the book into the show, and it was a fake book. We didn't even have it made. And it was then made by the time we put it out, so when it aired, it was on shelf that week. But you have to really get ahead of it, and there becomes an opportunity cost of, at the network, there's 4 licensing people, and they're always gonna focus on the properties that make the most money.
Right.
So at Fox, American Idol is the key show, and they're not going to focus on MasterChef, which is why we were driving it. And by season 2, I did 9 licensing deals because I got ahead of it, and I also connected in those partners into the show. So every one of those licensees was integrated into the show, where there's so much back and forth of protection of ad sales saying, no, you can't do that, or licensing. So it's really, I think, bringing to the table all the parties to say, collectively, we can do more, as opposed to the land grabs that I think cause decisions in the short term that don't benefit the long term.
But is it always going to be a season 2?
That's the risk you take, and that's the opportunity cost you weigh.
Right, I mean, can you ever get anything in on season 1, or is the timeline just not
Brands,
conducive
yes.
to that?
Sponsors, yes. Manufacturers, normally no. So a licensing deal is very tough, except for like a book. So we had a book deal with MasterChef.
But you had the book in the show. It just
Exactly.
didn't exist because it was blank.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. But that's very clever. Of course, I guess, that type of foresight's really important. And it's really good to like make hay while the sun shines, it seems, because how do the sales match up with the airing of the show? Is there any longevity after a reality show?
That's what I said. You have to capture the moment, because when the show's off the air, this is what the show's on the air, everything spikes. The show's off the air, it dives, and you got to capitalize when you have the opportunity. Otherwise, it's lost, basically.
If you look at that with a lot of the cable shows, if you look at A&E, and History Channel and things like that, they're producing these high-quality reality shows which are going out, which are building up sizable audiences, competing sometimes with terrestrial TV. But they're pushing product immediately. They're doing licensing deals for books. They're licensing costumes. Duck Dynasty. Enormous. I mean, there is not a product I don't think that they have done a deal with. Everything from a cookie on a shelf to it was one of the biggest selling Halloween costumes in Walmart. And you look at the money opportunity that is available to make with that side of the business versus what's available, from on-air advertising. And sometimes I deal with Walmart, if it hits right, after season 1 and you go into season 2 on a national scale in 30,000 stores or whatever, that's money. That's money for a network. Yeah. And I think, but that show ends, that's it. Gone. It's gone. And I often think about things that, major brands that have launched in this way with the talent. When I think of Bethany Frankel and the Skinny Girl franchise, I'm like, that we all live.
Well, and that's where celebrity has a longevity that
ultimately
programming that's going to come to an end ultimately doesn't have. So, in terms of building celebrity around that, and even with the Kardashians, the thing that even they're different than Biggest Loser in that they can cross over so many categories, from home decor to exercise to makeup to clothing, and which is a holistic lifestyle. And for me, as you saw in the news, like their ratings are going down for the show, But what I attest to that is their show is in real time. Their show is living in social media, in the press, ultimately, that they are somewhat driving as well. So in my mind, for their show to continue to really be successful, it's how do they create their show into like a news model example, where they turn episodes around in 3 days, and then all the social media, press on TMZ, and the show is all airing at one time. And then you can really maximize every touch point, every value, every screen, and leverage brands into that give them a touch point that really doesn't exist. And I think they have the power to do that ultimately.
Well, let me ask you about like celebrities in this model, this reality, like in Duck Dynasty. How much leverage do these celebrities have in these situations versus, let's say, an endorsement deal with a big movie star?
I mean, it varies, and he's been motivated. But I know that, season 1, everybody's happy just to get the show. Okay, so they're not cutting the best deals. Season 2, season 3, that's when everybody changes and, they want to start to break away. They don't want to support that particular deal. They've got their own book deal now. They have this, they have that. So it changes very quickly. And I think if you look at, something like a George Clooney, for example, who has and Daniel Craig, who I think both have Amiga watch deals. Those are very subtle deals that we see. We see them on the back of GQ or Men's Health magazine. We might see the occasional TV commercial, around the holiday times. But that's a matching of, this is this person here, George Clooney. I'm an actor, I'm a global superstar, I'm a thought leader, and this brand matches who he is, okay? It stands for quality, and we support that. That's natural. But when you see somebody on a season 2, season 3 of a show, on a reality show, and all of a sudden they're breaking away and falling out with the network over a book deal or over a licensing deal, and that's where it gets to. The show, the concept, kind of loses its way. It's all about the licensing deal and the product and how can I leverage my brand. Suddenly these reality people have 2-3 million Twitter followers, 2 million on Facebook. They're building apps.
And that's their own, basically.
Yeah,
their
that's
own
their
audience.
own.
That's not the show.
They're building their own audience and distribution platform across all the different platforms and saying, how can I can take this to a brand and monetize this.
Yeah, so they have to, while the show is airing, they need to sign every deal.
Look at
That's
Jersey
why
Shore as an example.
It's on everything, right?
Yeah.
It's not discriminating Omega Wash. No, it's like, whatever, put me on, I don't care,
I
Timex,
don't know
let's
the
do
deal
this.
with Duck Dynasty, but they had a pre-existing business. So the great thing about them doing a show is they could carve that out from the deal and really be able to control that. But I think, too, the reason it's so successful is it strikes an emotional relatability to a lot of the American culture. And the reason that they're so huge is because a lot of people identify with the lifestyle that they're living and the charm that they have and the hobbies that they have, and people want to tap into that. And I think that is the underpinning of the show. So for me, in creating content, it's about what are those demographics that I think will connect to the audience, and then how do you build the brand around those demographics specifically, using Duck Dynasty as that example.
And I think we've primarily been talking about a national level, but it gets really interesting when you start talking about a global level, because then, there's stars that might not be what they were here, but globally they're still massive. You use Paris Hilton as an example. 3-4 years ago, she attached her name to everything. Now you don't hear much, and you think, her career's over, but she's probably making more money now than she's ever made in her entire life because she's really tapped into, the Asian market, and you go to Dubai or Qatar, one of those, and, it's Paris, everything, the Paris jewelry line, the Paris makeup line. So, they're after markets that, once the show's off the air in the US and you can't really capitalize on that, there's still opportunities by region, and even more so on a localized basis, where you take someone like Priyanka Chopra, who's a massive star in India, who's recently come to the US, and now she's signed with CAA, and now she has a record deal with Interscope, and she's trying to break, her career out here, and if she can just get a small percentage of what she's been able to do in Bollywood, suddenly in Hollywood, now its brand on a global scale, because she's national, but national to just India, and now she's transcending it here. And I think that's the key. You just have to look at every single piece of content. Every celebrity has to look at themselves on a global scale. And you mentioned George Clooney, and he's actually associated with a lot of brands. They're just not in the U.S. He'll be on commercials and he'll be on billboards, but you're only going to find him in Asia. Or Leonardo DiCaprio is another great example, who is never going to do a commercial out here, but he will do commercials that that will air in Japan and will air in other places. And those are celebrities that are saying, this really is a global market. Let's look at every individual territory and what's our strategy there. And for us as the Young Hollywood brand, that's, you mentioned the Fremantle partnership, that's why we wanted to do it. Rather than us have the intel of what works in each territory, there are people on the ground that know, okay, South America, this is what's really hot in Brazil right now, this is what we need to focus on, and then we can try and take that star in the US that's really going to translate there. And we found, names that aren't huge here have these niche markets. There's a band called NKTO, that has a hit song out here, but they're not massive in the US, but they have a rabid fan base in Australia and in New Zealand. So, with that intel, we cater towards that market.
Interesting. I think great reality stars usually have a lot of volatility, and I think that can become a liability for this type of model, right? If there's so much pre-planning and manufacturing, and there's a process, that's a huge investment in a brand. So, you take Paula Deen, for example, especially since she's in control of her social. She can completely derail that process. I mean, we saw, you guys were talking a little bit about her deal with Walmart and how that kind of dematerialized with the controversy.
And it was not just Walmart, every company that was associated with her.
But there was huge investment, right?
Yeah.
So, how are we going to deal with that type of liability? I mean, with control, it's this sort of cat and mouse.
What's funny, what recently is happening in the market space from a brand's perspective, ad agencies now are building newsrooms, okay, internally. And this has kind of been the buzzword, and you're going to hear a lot about it this year moving forward. And what they're doing is they're building social media newsroom to react to brand damage and brand opportunity in real time. Because obviously with social media being such a powerful tool driving everything, they want to make sure that they can react to either a talent who's endorsing their brand or is connected to it. If something goes wrong, how can we react to that in real time? Because we're not in control of it. We're not in control of Tracy texting, tweeting, sharing what they found out with 300 of her friends, and so on and so on.
Right.
So a brand has to be in a position to react to that in real time. So brands are now having to change their whole ecosystem of how they work, okay? Because they want to be around talent, they want to be around celebrity, they want to be around great content as well, because they need to keep out there to keep their market share around their product. But at the same time, now they're figuring this is really hard to control. So let's build a newsroom, and let's put people on there who can monitor this and track it, so that if something bad happens, we can react to it in a positive way, and we can measure it and monitor it. And I think that's really interesting, and I think that's because we've seen so much celebrity and brand firing off in bad ways recently that, people have to be protected. And brands have to be protected because they're the ones funding all this. They fund the television production, they fund the shows, they fund the artists, and at the end of the day, a brand's reputation is on the line. So
I think though that there has to be consistency and authenticity. So I think with Paul, I think what you saw is sort of a reaction as opposed to a consistency of messaging. And I think that's where things went astray, is they were trying to react as opposed to just be who they are. And to me, one of our clients is Jack Hanna. So he is America's favorite zookeeper. And the thing I love about him is he gets 3 million viewers a week on his TV shows. And he's a very clean, consistent brand. He's been on David Letterman for 30 years, Good Morning America for 30 years. And I don't know a lot of celebrities that have that much consistency and that much conservative nature in terms of he hasn't done a lot of brand deals, a lot of manufacturing deals. And for me, it's now building that out into, okay, who is that person now where he is? And it really spans the gamut of all things kids and families that he brings together. It's baby boomers, travel and adventure, pets. And so there's a wide range that can be authentic. But to me, as long as he maintains his consistency, then there's protection in the long run of that. And I think even some brands, they are reactive. And even like with Subway, when there was that whole Michael Phelps issue, they stayed with Michael, where some of the brands dropped him. And I think that's a big thing that people lose sight of, is reacting as opposed to being consistent to who they are.
So I guess like if you could build like let's just take a celebrity and paint a picture of like how would you chop them up, so to speak, in terms of this like sort of new empire. How much of it is just straight salary? How much of it is endorsement? How much are they going to be building themselves on social? Like, how would you pull this together? Like, what are the components of like the future of an entertainment celebrity brand? Like, what does it look like now, as opposed to just I get my rate and go home?
I think it looks very differently now than it did 5-10 years ago, and for different reasons. And I think reality television has enabled a whole new business. George Clooney, and don't quote me, but I don't think he really needs the money from the Omega deal to sustain his lifestyle of what he's built. Whereas a reality star on a cable channel, they are supplementing their overall income, because most of them lose their initial businesses that they do and their careers, and they throw themselves all in for this, and they get paid a little bit per episode, and then they
nominal, relatively.
Not very nominal, yeah. It's a small rate, but they have the opportunity to build a brand, build product. So if you look at the Housewives, I think every housewife has 3 brands each. They're always plugging those things because it's allowed, and they're allowed to leverage that to be part of the show and to earn another income. Some of them are cutting deals with the network, some are not cutting deals with the network. But I think it's a very mixed marketplace. You see that.
Well, the talent deals
side.
that I worked on, and the shows that I worked on, there has to be some sense of control, in the sense that everyone will go their separate ways. Right. So when we had new shows in development, we learned this the hard way as we sort of developed these talents that created their own brands, where they couldn't do competitive deals to the partners of the show, whether that's manufacturing or sponsorship, but we also guaranteed them work as well. So they got their episodic rate, and then we guaranteed them X number of days of service for all the ancillary components, because the other thing we learned is you have to have someone talking about it. You have to have a face and an emotion and a connection, and just Biggest Loser by itself doesn't mean anything. It's all the people that bring it to life, and really the experts on the show are the ones that bring the credibility to it. So we had to build in that structure into the deals, but we also wanted them to benefit. So we gave them back-end pieces, we gave them service days, even though a lot of times the show budget doesn't advocate that in the very beginning, and that's where those margins are getting so low. And how do you really bring everyone to the collective together to really drive the machine?
And how much are they participating on the upside, do you think, these like reality stars, in terms of brand deals?
It all depends. Obviously the Kardashians are amazing. They have a lot more control than a new Bob and Jillian when we first did their deals. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on where it is, and I think it's the notion that I think also has been lost is just partnership. And as you grow together, and you're all in it together, and you need each other ultimately to drive ancillary business.
And to your point, how is it going to be different 5 to 10 years? I think the brand content relationship is going to be very different. I mean, as Jamie said, the newsroom, but you really need to look at your brand as your partner now. Before it would be a media buy, they're buying, pre-roll or commercial spots, and that's that. They're just paying the bills and they're your advertiser. Doesn't work anymore. In a couple of years, that model, I truly think is just going to be gone. It's a broken model, and everyone's starting to realize that. And people lose sight of the fact that if you're creating content, for television primarily or digital, you're doing so because of the brand. So that's what's paying the bills. That's how you're doing it, because in digital, the pay model hasn't really had much success.
Right.
Everything really is ad supported. So you have to look at that relationship differently and say, okay, how do we also leverage the things you have because you're our partner? And you know, he mentioned Subway several times, who's been a client of ours for a long time. But we look at how do we leverage that? Like, they have 26 million Facebook fans. That's a value to us, and that's a value to the celebrities that are working with us. Even if you don't have an endorsement deal, by them putting it on their Facebook page, that's now going to reach 26 million people. That's a lot of people. You look at their foot traffic. I mean, they have 30 some odd thousand stores. If you've got a new movie coming out and you're going to promote it in the store, that's 2-3 million people that are coming through on a weekly basis. I mean, more. It's 2-3 million on a daily basis. That's a lot of eyeballs. So I think the celebrities that are the smart ones are the ones that aren't saying, I want my check from the brand, because yes, you can still get that, but if you're really smart, how do we utilize all the tentacles that the brand has? They may not be giving me dollars, but I'm utilizing their network and the network of Young Hollywood and everything else that I'm going to make more money other way, because now more people are going to know who I am. I'm going to get retweets. I'm going to get more of a following, and I'm going to control those followers, which is what we're saying is, the beauty of Twitter and Facebook. You own that audience. It's going to be with you forever. So if you have 10,000 fans and it suddenly grows to 100,000 fans, that's 100,000 fans that when he does a deal, you can sell those products to. So the value is utilizing everything else to build the fan base. Then once you have the fan base, you partner up with a guy like him, and then you sell products to him, and then you really monetize.
I love the fact that you said that, because to me, what I found time and time again is a lot of times people just see brands for actual dollars.
Right.
And it is so much more than that. And just, going back to Biggest Loser, because it's the best example, I think, in terms of robustness. But, with all of those partners, they're in that show. Subway's been in that show for 14 seasons. Clorox has been in that show for 14 seasons. General Mills, and it's across so many brands. But what we really spent time at Reveille doing was asking the questions, what more can we do? How do we over-deliver? Where now you're changing the conversations from just a media by CPM, but we're now infusing ourselves into their retail, their on-pack, their social media, their co-branded commercials. So when we would do a deal with General Mills, we integrated 10 of their products into Biggest Loser, and we would be on 500 million packages, which you cannot purchase, you cannot buy. And the second step of that is those products then live with people. So if we're on a Cheerios box, for me, it would be tune-in on the front. I would put a licensee on the back, so I'm driving tune-in promotion, indirect promotion to one of my manufacturers that could never have bought that. But then a Cheerios box or a cereal box is actually one of the most read pieces of collateral, because it sits in your house for a week and a half, you put it on your table, and you actually read that box more than once. So you were totally engaged with it, and it's a marketing value that you don't have access to that these brands can provide to you, other than just money. But those are the questions.
I've got a great timely example, Super Bowl. People are wondering, why is Bruno Mars the halftime show when you've had Madonna and you've had Bruce Springsteen, and Bruno Mars arguably is not that level, but he has an endorsement deal with Pepsi. Pepsi's the leading sponsor of the Super Bowl, so thus the halftime show is going to be him. Last year, it was Beyonce. Same thing. But they looked at it, yes, they probably are receiving something from Pepsi, but because of that partnership and that relationship, now you're suddenly the halftime show at the Super Bowl that 100 million people are going to watch, and a lot of people that are not the Bruno Mars audience are suddenly now going to know who Bruno Mars is. And that's just the platform that the brand was able to create for them. And they also did synergy with the Grammys, so they tied in their Grammy endorsement deal with their Super Bowl endorsement deal, and they did a whole big Twitter thing. They started doing viral videos on YouTube that was sort of the road from the Grammys to the Super Bowl. So certain brands like that are really starting to get it and realize, like, we have a lot of value, what we control. Let's now get in the content creation business, the content production business. Let's get out of the media buying business, and let's create interesting content that people want to see.
Well, I think that's great, because I think, in this conversation, I was afraid that is the future of entertainment going to be less about content, because content is becoming less of a product now, right? I mean, creating a great show seems to be not nearly enough as a sustainable business model now. You have to now bring and integrate all of this. What RJ seems to be saying is that it's actually creating out all these new opportunities for content, where content really actually does matter. I mean, when you were thinking about entertainment in the next 5 to 10 years, and you're thinking about celebrities, are you seeing this as a lot more entrepreneurial landscape and less of a sort of employer-employee type of relationship? And are we going to see celebrities becoming actual media platforms in themselves and breaking other artists? Like, how do you see
I
the
think
future?
celebrities have to, because the checks from a salary standpoint are just not there. I mean, movies, they're not paying what they were paying. Unless you're the $20 million actor, you're getting a fraction of what you did. If you're on a show, everyone's getting paid scale now. I mean, you look at, it's public knowledge what, Jonah Hill got for Wolf of Wall Street. I mean,
Right.
It was like $60,000. I mean, he's the star of a $100 million movie, and the guy got a $60,000 paycheck for 7 months' work, and he's a movie star. But why did he do it? Because he wanted that platform of everything else that lent to. Now he's getting dollars every other way. So, I mean, talent, it doesn't matter what shape of celebrity you are, if you're a YouTube star or if you're a major star, you need to get the platform that's going to get everyone to know who you are, and then build your own business, because then you can do products and endorsement deals and everything, because now you're the star, and it's almost a loss leader. That's really how you have to look at it. That the TV show, Jonathan, that was probably a good example with his show. The check he made for that show was probably this, but what he made when he had his products, and suddenly the hair gel and dirt, which everybody was using. I mean,
He had a water filter.
Yeah, a water filter. I mean, the guy became a multimillionaire that was a hairdresser that was making nothing on the show, but because he had a water filter, he did very well. Yeah, and that's just how you have to look at it. It's going to be so different in the next few years. The checks are getting smaller, but when you look at the global brand, there's
What
a
does
lot
this
more money
mean
to
for
be made.
like independent producers? You were saying that even as a YouTube star, you can do this. I mean, do you have to be a big star in order for this to work?
You have to have an audience.
I think if you look at YouTube, YouTube is a phenomenal thing. I mean, there are YouTube stars that, have millions and millions of viewers. They'll release a 5-minute video, they get 10 million views twice a week. That's phenomenal engagement. Now, there are companies out there, and there's talent agencies in Hollywood, as you know, and whatever, signing up these talent. And what they're trying to do is, it's like, great, you've got this audience, but we're not making any money.
Right.
Okay. How can we build your brand outside of YouTube? How can we build that brand, extend it, and have it become something? Because obviously, there's something about you that people like. How can we monetize that elsewhere? And how can we bring a brand in as well at the same time and leverage their footprint? And I would hate to think how many of these, YouTube stars have been knocking on brands like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and, P&G, who know this landscape very well. But, they're looking at YouTube thinking, okay, well, 10 million people know you there. But if I do a survey with these Nielsen demographic type people, how many of those people will know you?
Right.
And I think that's the challenge that we have, is that we do have amazing talent that's being born on different platforms now. And that's going to be exciting for the future.
They're Vine stars
it's
now.
just like
you hear
Vine
endorsement deals with a guy
stars.
that's just on Vine, and that's all he does.
So.
Chad, I'll ask you the last question because I think we're out of time, but you were talking about how the manufacturing process is because of the time required, at least on these massive scales we're talking about, it can become a bottleneck. But with the sort of advent of rapid prototyping and sort of micro-manufacturing, think about Kickstarter and how you can actually pre-sell product before it's actually created. Do you see that as a huge opportunity down the line with smaller brands, smaller celebrities that have ravenous audiences? I mean, do you think that the future...
Yeah, and I definitely think that if you have an audience, you have something to tap into. And it's then figuring out the means that you have available to then try to leverage it as quickly as possible. But I do think like Kickstarter is a great example of now your audience is even more invested. Like they're feeling like they are a part of building your brand.
Yeah, I guess you kind of did that already because like you had a book that didn't exist, but you sold it, basically.
Yeah.
So, well, great. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And thanks for hanging in there. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks so much for listening. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.